Welcome. I'm Daniel, the man to come, and today I would like to discuss Jordan Peterson and specifically talk about how and why he rose to fame so quickly and became so famous. Now, there's a lot of influencers that talks about this specific question. There's a lot of different theories. The first one starts with the idea that Jordan Peterson was a reaction to the different mindsets of our modern times, specifically the feminist, liberal, and egalitarian mindsets that are being used to influence legislation. Now, I'm sure you've seen this interview, if you're familiar with Jordan Peterson, with Kathy Newman, where he showed that the mindsets used to pass legislation and the views that people have in the media and the mainstream don't actually match reality. And a lot of people feel this to be true. And once Jordan Peterson started to talk about it, he managed to influence the world and show people that, look, the data doesn't match what you're doing. And so that made him famous. Now, unfortunately, I don't exactly agree with this theory because a lot of people criticize the egalitarian liberal movements we have today, the mainstream narrative. And so a lot of people criticize them, but yet Jordan Peterson's the one who rose to fame. That doesn't really make sense. It can't be the only reason. The second idea that a lot of people talk about is the whole pronoun debate. Back when he was a professor at the University of Toronto, Canada passed a law that mandated compelled speech, meaning that if you are a professor, you have to refer to your student by their preferred pronouns. Now, this is a little different from hate speech, where hate speech tells you, hey, you can't say these specific words as they can, hurt somebody's feelings. Compelled speech says, if you're in a specific situation, you're obliged to say the following words. This is a little bit different and really needs to be taken into consideration because, as Jordan Peterson actually said, if you allow for compelled speech to be a thing in your government, you set a precedent that over time will allow more and more compelled speech and eventually lead into an Orwellian nightmare, which nobody wants. And so by putting his own career on the line, he refused to go with the LGBTQ narrative and stood up against the compelled speech. And because he risked so much to do it, that's what made him famous. Now, Jordan Peterson is not the only person who stood up to compelled speech. And even right now, there's this documentary called What is a Woman that undermines the whole ideology or attempts to undermine the LGBTQ ideology. And so if Jordan Peterson became so famous, other people should have become famous as well. But that didn't happen. And I think there's a different reason. The third mainstream theory as to why he became famous, and Jordan Peterson actually refers to this one himself, has to do with the idea of clean your room, or go into the belly of the whale and save your father, or follow the myth of the hero. So this is the rhetoric that Jordan Peterson always speaks of, the rhetoric of the hero, of slaying the dragon, saving the princess, and getting the treasure. Now, it's aimed at young men, and it's claiming to ask young men to find purpose in life, to get responsibility upon their shoulders, and through that responsibility obtain meaning, something that other people don't often talk about. The only thing is, and I'm sure you've seen this all over the Instagram, you have all these nice little quotes about finding meaning in life and gaining responsibility, Seneca and all these mindsets, Marcus Aurelius's meditations, and all the ideas of pursuing a great life of responsibility. They're quite common. Why Jordan Peterson? Because he's an academic and he's clear and knows exactly what he's saying. It's a good part of the reason. I do believe that the reason why he became so famous has to do with the young man seeking purpose. But there's something very specific that we need to note, and here is my theory. So hang on and let's go through this problem. I believe that this is a problem that has to do with hierarchy and a problem that has to do with a lack of role models. So the problem will start with a study done by Lego, the company. Lego has a lot of boy users. Kids who are male play with Legos. Girls don't play with Legos as often. So Lego wanted to find out, why not? And they did this study with a lot of kids where they tried to find out why is it that boys prefer Legos and girls don't, and what can they do to maximize the amount of kids that buy and play Lego. And so they figured the following out. When a boy is playing with a toy, let's say a boy has a Spider-Man toy, he becomes Spider-Man. He plays with his toy as if that toy is now him. So he takes the strong personality of the toy and applies it to himself and plays as if he is Spider-Man, as if he is a noble hero. He's here to save and fight for justice and do great things. And kids do this all the time. A 4-year-old child repeats what his father says. A 4-year-old child wants to be like his father. He wants to learn by doing and seeing something great. Girls, on the other hand, play somewhat differently. And this comes very clearly when you see a girl playing with a Barbie. A Barbie doesn't really have a personality. Yes, she looks fine, but that doesn't have a specific mindset or anything behind it. If a girl's playing with a Barbie, she imbues the Barbie with her own personality. Specifically, if the girl likes to bake, then the toy she's playing it will be a baker. If the girl is currently a fan of building sandcastles, then the toy she plays with will be a sandcastle builder. And this has to do with the fundamental physiological substance of a woman. She wants to nurture the world around her. She wants to imbue her child with her personality and her understanding of the world. And so the girl looks at the toy, and the toy acts as an empty vessel that she imbues with her mind. And then she plays around with it. And more importantly, as she imbues the toy with this life, she also wants to learn from the world, but not in a way that changes her, but in a way that allows her to adapt to the changing world. And you can specifically see this in things like sitcoms, like Friends, for example. The Friends sitcom, right, this one, right? You had 6 people, but they're all not exactly exceptional, but they're highly relatable. And a woman can watch it and be like, yeah, I don't want to be like Monica. I don't want to be like Joey. But I can relate to that person, and I can imagine myself in that social situation. So if I'm ever in that social situation, I know what to do in it. So they maximize relatability. Women thrive in relatable circumstances. Now, you can see this as a defense measure. She needs to keep stability. She needs to keep stability within the family. So the woman builds up this sense of relatability and aims for anything that can be relatable to her, but nothing too exceptional. And you can see this in Virgin Mary. Virgin Mary is the perfect woman according to the Bible. And she is so because she kept her purity. So think about this. If a woman at the age of 30 keeps the same purity she had when she was 15, the same kindness she had when she was 15, the same beauty and youth she had when she was 15, that 30-year-old woman will be valued more than another one who didn't keep all those characters. So for a woman, change is actually not beneficial. That's societally, that's how people think in the majority of the world. For men, it's the exact opposite. If a man at the age of 30 acts like he's 15, he's called a man-child. He's made fun of. He's undermined because he needs to adapt. He needs to learn from others. He needs to learn from great men. That's why kids like to follow firefighters and want to be like a firefighter, because a firefighter does something he cannot do. A firefighter is, in the mind of a child, exceptional. In the mind of a man, a firefighter is exceptional, risking his life to achieve something great. And then the warriors, think a soldier wants to be like an officer wants to be like a commander wants to be like a general, and the general wants to be a marshal or a head of state. And then the head of state or the king would hopefully want to be Christ-like, right? So Christ being the epitome of this ideal character, a God in the body of a human who sacrifices himself for our sins, who is the perfect person, yet his own Father allows him to suffer for us. That's so exceptional. The story itself is highly exceptional, but it's not very relatable. Think of the trilogy of Lord of the Rings. Highly exceptional, unique stories. These hobbits going through the mountains trying to save the world. You have a king coming back to take his throne. You have a wizard who falls and then comes back better, right? And now think of Hobbit, the trilogy, the movie. very relatable. They have all these jokes and they're doing all these silly things, but they're not exceptional. It's not an exceptional movie. And over the last 20 years, because most of the movies wanted to do what Lego wants to do, right? Lego wants to get women to play more with Legos. Because Legos they're not mega blocks, right? These are the exceptional blocks, Legos. For them to become more exceptional, to become more, consumable, they need to become more relatable. And if they become more relatable, they lose their exceptionality. Because by definition, something exceptional cannot be relatable. And something relatable, by definition, cannot be exceptional. And this is the problem we're dealing with here, right? The difference between exceptionality and relatability. As time went by, Pixar, I remember back in the day they made this animated movie called Incredibles, all about exceptionality. Nowadays, all the movies they make are relatable, family-oriented. They're not about an exceptional family. They're about people being in good communications, something that women need to thrive. But men don't. Men need to see other men be exceptional and learn from them to be better. It created a void, a gap of content of exceptionality. The reason why Jordan Peterson became so famous had to do with his content. If you see, most of his videos are about mythology, Sumerian mythology, or biblical stories, which are all aimed at exceptionality. They're not very relatable. Going against the goddess of chaos, Tiamat or whatever, and then cutting her into pieces, that's not a relatable thing, but it is highly exceptional. And because there was a gap in the market, because all the businesses tried to make content that's highly relatable, young men no longer had anyone to follow. They would look at these weird series from Netflix where it's all about these nice little people, kind of Sex and the City style connections between social issues and whatnot, and all this diversity and whatnot, but they don't have anyone exceptional anymore. Marvel, Iron Man was an exceptional character. A man who was super smart, who was super popular, had all these women, was very intelligent, built a suit, and was attempting to kind of not sacrifice himself, but risked everything he had to protect his country, to protect his people. It was exceptional. And then over time, they wanted to broaden their markets, so they made the next Marvel movies more and more relatable. More little jokes, more ideas between the heroes kind of having conflicts between each other, and eventually it became a relatability series. Marvel releases a new movie and you watch it and you're like, what is this? There's nothing exceptional about it. So Jordan Peterson filled this gap by creating content about exceptional characters. And young men wanted and needed that. There was demand for exceptionality. And he's not the only one who became famous through this gap in the market. There's a famous millionaire who likes to drive Bugattis, who all he talks about is being exceptional and teaching young men to be more exceptional. And so I do believe that this is why Jordan Peterson rose to fame. And I would like to do a similar thing. I'm making videos about the great men of the past, the great men of history, so that young men could learn from their exceptional acts. The mainstream narrative will tell you all about the evil or unusual bad things that the past historical men did and why men and colonies and all that are all bad. But as men, we don't want to learn about the bad things. We want to learn about the exceptional, awesome, going out and changing your empire, being like Julius Caesar, who overthrew everything and changed everything and made his own world and made a better world and removed corruption. We want to learn about the exceptional things so we can become like that. So if maybe one man, Julius Caesar, had to go and have a civil war, right? Maybe if I teach you and I show you about the great man of the past, maybe we'll eventually have a great man who also changes the world but doesn't have a war, for example. Doesn't go and cause a bunch of trouble. Isn't that possible? Of course it is, because we learn from each other. Because the next man becomes better than his father. The next man becomes the better version of the previous mans of the past. So together, we can build a good future. A future where a great man can do great things. So if you liked this video, and now you understand where this gap between exceptionality and relatability came from, if you really like this, feel free to donate, subscribe, support my channel, and hope to see you next time. This was Daniel, the man to come, and thank you very much. Have a great day.